Welcome back to The Walking David. I'm your host, David Grayson, and today we're going to be reviewing The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, Episode 3.
I just got done watching the episode earlier today, and man, right off the jump, I'm going to say that this is probably the best edited episode of The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live so far. The storytelling through some of the editing was really solid. I liked some of the flashbacks. Everything was sequenced really well. Like, it was put in a very particular place for a particular reason to convey a message. It wasn't just doing flashbacks and weird edits and stuff like that for weird editing's sake. It all served a good purpose. So, kudos to the show. Really nice job. We picked up right where we left off with Jadis threatening Rick. We get a little bit of backstory with Jadis about how the reason she was able to get into the city without having to go through training was because she gave Rick as a gift to the CRM, basically, which we didn't really need. I mean, I understand that it provides some context, but I feel like that could have been put in the first episode, but I'm not really knocking it. I thought it was okay, and I actually dubbed over. I had released a fake audio from The Ones Who Live from this episode without even realizing it. There was a behind-the-scenes clip of Andrew Lincoln talking to the woman who plays Jadis, and I dubbed over it, and it got some views on my channel. It was pretty funny. A lot of people thought it was real. It got a lot of views on TikTok. I think I probably got 50,000 plus views on TikTok.
I see the way that you look at me, but you can't right here. Not now. Michonne is here, and I can't have her find out about us.
Truly, Rick, I thought that I was one of the leaders of the garbage people, that you were the one who's garbage.
I do love making fake leaked audios. Just because it's like, hey man, as an impressionist, I love being able to fool people into thinking it's a real leak from the show, because it just means that my impression was all that much better. So we get a little bit of that backstory with Jadis. We see her threatening Rick. We see all that she knows. And I will say this episode did a good job of kind of answering some of the questions that we've had up until this point, just like little things. Where did Rick get the artwork? Was he the one doing it? No, there's a guy in town who does it, who's a professional artist. They answered that. Good on you. Good on you. I really didn't think the show would answer that. I thought they were just going to leave it up in the air. So retroactively, I have no issue, pretty much, with the drawings. I thought this whole time that Rick was the one who did those drawings, and that was the right thing to assume. Why would we assume that somebody else drew a picture of Michonne? I like that they answered that question. I think the scene in which Michonne meets the guy is kind of pointless. I don't really know why they had that interaction, but it was cool. If she had just seen the stand, that would have been enough for me, but I was fine with the little interaction. I don't think we need to see that character again or anything like that. They gave us all that we needed. It was an exposition dump scene, but it was more like a contextualization dump. That's a good framing for this episode. It was a contextualization dump, which is so much better than an exposition dump. Recontextualizing things to make us understand it from the other perspective or to answer some questions that we had, I mean, that's like a very Game of Thrones kind of method of storytelling. And I mean like good Game of Thrones. Like, this was actually a pretty well executed episode, all things considered.
By what right does the wolf judge the lion?
I've seen in the comments a lot of people don't really like broken Rick. They don't like that Rick seems to be sort of defeated and he feels powerless. How would you feel if you had tried to escape multiple times, you cut your hand off, and you still couldn't leave? And then when you tried to help Michonne once again in this episode, he tries to help her escape, and she just refuses. Why would you not feel defeated? I don't have a problem with Rick not being able to think his way out of something. I think that actually makes this a little bit more relatable, because how would you think your way out of this. It seems like everything that he has thought of or tried to do, they've had an answer for. And so he feels like he can't win. It's not quite the same as with Negan, because in this case, instead of him being completely defeated and powerless and not being the leader, he is moving up the ranks steadily of the CRM. So I'm okay with it. It is a different spin-off of a type of storytelling we have seen before in regard to Rick, but kind of the opposite side of the coin once again. Even gaining more power, the only thing that he really is gaining is the ability to help her get out. And that's it. As he even says in this episode, you need somebody on the inside to help you get out. And they have proven that in this show. They've done a good job of kind of setting up that there are eyes everywhere. The only part that doesn't make as much sense is the fact that it's always conveniently Jadis who happens to have eyes on Rick. Or the South African lady always happens to be talking to Rick. There's not as much interaction with a lot of the other people, because if they were all in Rick Grimes' position, then they would be monitoring each other equally. Like Rick would be monitoring Thorne. I think that's her name. Thorne. And Jadis would be monitoring Rick and Thorne and all the other people in those positions. We're just not seeing a lot of that, but they're doing okay. The show is doing a pretty damn decent job of showing how the hierarchy works. And I'd say kind of like an equivalent job to how they set up the Sanctuary in The Walking Dead, like how and where Negan's men fall in the chain of command and things like that. You know, because then you have Negan, and then you have Dwight, and then you have Simon. So you kind of see these people who are slightly above in the rankings, but not by much. Like, they're his right-hand men, but if they step to him, they could easily be treated like a subordinate. Like, way, way down. This episode did a fantastic job of building tension and then releasing it, which is perfect for pacing and being invested in the story. We do have to feel like there are stakes, and it does feel like there are stakes. You're constantly worried for both Rick and Michonne that they're going to get caught. You're constantly hoping that Jadis will get caught up in her shit. You're worried that Thorne will flip on Rick. I mean, there's a lot of things that really do pull you into this story, and I've got to give the show props. I mean, this was probably the most tense that I have been while watching this show so far, was this episode. Which leads me into my point that I really want to focus on in this episode was the acting. To me, this is Andrew Lincoln's best episode of this series so far. We got a lot of great performances in the first episode of just like,
Those are not my people. They're all your people, Rick. Everybody alive. You made the choice. My wife is my choice. My daughter, my life is my choice.
Like, we got some great acting from Andrew Lincoln in that first episode. We really did. But this, getting to see a character saying one thing while meaning another, that is excellent writing. Excellent writing, but even better performance by Andrew Lincoln. Yelling at Michonne to leave, but trying to make it convincing that he doesn't give a fuck about her when clearly he does, it just makes it very rich writing, okay? That is good. That's probably one of my favorite scenes in the show, is where he just goes,
Stop. It doesn't even matter. You're going to get on that goddamn boat even if I have to knock you out and put you there myself.
like, that shit, like, I felt it. Like, Andrew Lincoln just made me fucking believe this shit, okay? He sold it. He sold me on it. It looked like he was genuinely pissed at Michonne for multiple reasons throughout this episode, and that is good fucking writing. That is what this show and what The Walking Dead has been lacking, are characters getting pissed at other characters for real reasons. Actual reasons, not just bullshit Gimple speak, dumb fucking reasons, real life reasons. When you are looking out for the person that you love and they keep defying what you were doing for them, and it is getting them in a compromised situation, and all you were trying to do is make sure that they are safe and that they are taken care of, and they seem to be too stupid or thick-headed to accept the help, it's incredibly frustrating. And you feel like you're wasting your breath and all you want to do is fucking strangle them. That's what we got. That's what we got and what we so desperately motherfucking needed. Yes. Great job, Andrew Lincoln. Fuck, that shit pumped me up. There were so many moments in this show that brought some actual tension and stakes. And there were some idiots online who kept saying, like, Shane comes back in episode 3. Shane comes back, everyone. Hey, Shane comes back. And it's like, Shane didn't come back. What I guess that they were referring to is the fact that Thorne was raising her gun like Shane raised his gun at Rick. Thorne was raising her gun at Michonne. And in similar fashion to Dale, Rick steps in between them and kind of goes, hey, get back to work. Focus on what's in front of us right here. Now, I will say, I like that the characters, at least like Jadis and Thorne and some of these people, like, well, not Thorne. I'm still not a fan of Thorne. I had less of a problem with her in this episode. I think she fit a little bit better in this episode, and maybe that's just because we got a lot of the bullshit out of the way. But her writing is weak. The writing around the character Thorne is weak. I also will say that Terry O'Quinn, he's not delivering a performance that I know he is capable of delivering, at least not yet. I thought his performance just sitting on the bench talking to Rick was good, and I like the scene where he gives Rick the book and says basically to his face, I don't trust you yet, or I haven't made up my mind about you. So, you know, you're moving up, but I don't trust you, and I'm keeping my eye on you. I thought that part was good. The part where he's giving a speech about the sword, there are multiple parts in that scene that just felt like he forgot what he was saying or was reading off of cue cards. And it just broke whatever the message was of that. But the scene where he's holding the sword at Okafor's wake and is telling the story about where it came from felt very choppy. His performance felt very rigid. It didn't flow very well. It felt like he was waiting for a cue card off camera to move to the next card, and then he resumed, which could be what was happening. He's looking off like this. We're not getting a close-up on him. He very well may have just not had the lines, or they changed the lines or something, and he was just rolling with whatever they had. Or who knows? There's a lot of problems that happen on shoots. Trust me. Actors showing up late, the flight got delayed, we only have a certain amount of daylight left, or Terry has to leave soon, and so he's not taking the time to really memorize these things, or they hand you a new script with a pink sheet or a blue sheet, meaning that there were revisions and they changed it, and then they have to shoot soon, and the actor didn't have enough time to memorize it and prepare.
Like I said, the thing that's going to save you time is 2 shots on this, you guys. That is the coverage. There is no, let's get a different shot, or it'd be great to get, nope. You get 2. In some cases, 1. Like in some cases, if you just have to do an over the shoulder of some guy doing it, you don't even get his face, you just get the reaction of the guy's face and the audio of him talking. It's got to be okay. Because that's the only way that I can keep us even going at a decent pace.
That happens all the time, and so I'm not necessarily blaming Terry. I'm blaming the fact that the director didn't stop it and go, you know what, let's smooth this out, or let's move in for coverage so that it can flow better. I would have liked to see some close-ups of Beale looking at Rick and looking at other people before then leading into the scene where he talks to Rick and Thorne. But I will say, I'm very much on Rick's side. I think Michonne was acting very stupid and wasn't thinking this through. I think that she should have left and then tried to find a way to get him out. Rick is saying, you need somebody on the inside to help get you out, where I think you need someone on the outside to help get you out. And Michonne could have been that person. I thought the way that they were showing Michonne, like the way that they shoot her, I get that they're trying to show that she's acting one way but saying another, kind of like the thing that I said was good about a lot of things in this episode, but I mean more good on the Rick side of things. The best scene where Michonne was looking one way and conveying a different message was when Rick said, I told you if you loved me, you would leave. And then she looks at him like, But the way that she gives that look is she's saying, like, I stayed because I love you. The reason I didn't leave is because I love you. Or I would never leave you like that. You should know better. You know, like, come on. I didn't mind that. What I do mind is that they showed Michonne constantly staring at Rick and looking between him and Thorne and him and the other people and him and Jadis and stuff like that. And I'm just kind of like, why not try to hide it a little bit better? I don't understand why Michonne would be so obvious. Maybe the way that they directed her was that they go, listen, you're following Rick's lead here. So you need to be looking at him suspiciously and constantly keeping him in the corner of your eye because he might be signaling you something subtle that you need to pick up on. Like, this is the time to run or this is the time to go. That's only because I'm hypothesizing the intent of the director for her scenes. But, yeah, I thought Michonne was acting a little strange, but still good, just strange. I might have had a moment of like you keep looking at Grimes over here like you have a crush on him. You know what I mean? Or somebody calls him out and then she realizes that she hasn't been covering her tracks as good as she should have and then changes. Hell, I know this sounds dumb. I kind of wanted Rick to punch her. You know what I mean? To really sell it. It's like, you know, they did it in the show The Sopranos where like a guy was getting robbed and he goes, listen, if you're going to take my truck, punch me in the face, like rough me up a bit because otherwise my boss will think that I'm in on it.
Now, my boss is gonna think I'm in on it. There's no way I could walk away unscathed without being fired.
You want to be scathed?
Yes, sir. It looks like I didn't give up without a struggle.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you, man.
That's what I would have done in this. I would have been like, hey, listen, you violated my orders. There has to be punishment. I have to hit you. Okay?
This is how we survive now. Now, come on. We don't have much time.
And he can just take the fake hand and just bonk her in the fucking head with it. You know what I mean? Just to give her a little shiner. Just to show, you know, some loyalty. I think that honestly would have helped his case. But I don't know where the story's going. But I think that would have helped sell it a little bit better. Because then if she's looking at Rick, it looks like she's afraid of Rick. Not like she has a crush on Rick. You see what I'm saying? Little things like that. Seeing the scene where Rick says, like, I'm going to knock you, even if I have to knock you out myself and drag you onto the boat to get you to leave, I'll do it. And him basically lightly breaking up with her or trying to convince her to go, trying to yell at her so that it's easier for her to leave and take his help. Yet she still doesn't buy it. That's delightfully complex, okay? It's frustrating, yes, but we are frustrated for Rick, and we're frustrated for her because you're like, man, this is your chance. He really is looking out for you, but she also knows, like, hey, I came all this way. I'm not leaving without you. I think this episode did a great job of showing that. Also, quick shout out to Rick. I love that he called her haircut shitty.
You're a hero with a shit haircut.
The dynamic that of Rick kind of standing up to Jadis in this episode and turning the tides, then just for them to kind of subvert the expectation and you just see Michonne there and she didn't go along with it. I thought that was actually pretty well done. It was a little bit predictable to someone like me, but for the lay person, just for the average person watching the show who doesn't pick up on filmmaking nuance and shit like that, I think that was very well executed. Because then when you see her, the look on Rick's face of that like, oh, fuck, you know what I mean? Like, what have you done? That really hits, okay? So they did a really good job, like I said, building the tension and suspense and then knowing when to release it and how to release it. That is such a skill. That is such a writing skill that this show has desperately needed, and it did it in this episode. The very end of the episode, we see Michonne and Rick. And then they're in turbulence and they're flying kind of low. It's hard to tell what they're flying above. If it's trees, if it's water or whatever. I suspect it's water due to this next part. And Michonne just says, fuck it. She adjusts something on her waist. I'm imagining a parachute. And then opens up the door, grabs Rick and throws them both out of the helicopter. I really did like where this episode ended. That's a great spot to leave it because it's a cliffhanger ending, but it's a cliffhanger ending with some action behind it. I like that we could literally pick right back up with them mid-fall, and I would be fascinated. That's great. It is kind of hearkening back to when Travis on Fear the Walking Dead was shot in the neck and then fell out of the helicopter, but this is even better. I like the kamikaze version of jumping out of the helicopter just to escape. You know what I mean? That is some great escape shit that I love. I think that's great. It felt very D.B. Cooper. I don't know if you all know that story, but D.B. Cooper on the plane, and he asked for parachutes. He asked for enough for him and the pilots, and then at some point, just middle of the flight, he just jumped out into the wilderness, never to be seen again. I kind of got that vibe from this, and I'm like, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I was shocked that they did that. I didn't think the show had the balls to do anything like that. The way this show is shot is really nice. I like the way they light it. I like the makeup that they're doing. I like the way that they are filming these scenes. They're dark, but you can still see their eyes. I mean, it's just really well done. They did a really nice job making this look different than the main show, if not better. I like it. It feels like a military film, which is awesome. That's what you want. It feels like a grand film. Every single episode feels like a film. That's fantastic, especially considering they were going to make these into films originally. It's nice to know that if they wanted to, they could have. I'm glad that they didn't. I'm glad they did the miniseries version, don't get me wrong. But it's nice to know that if this is how it looked, it would have looked good. And I'm so glad this isn't a film. I'm so glad, because you know what? Those first 2 episodes, if that was one movie, it would have been a blue balling of epic proportion if you ended that episode on Nat dying and Rick with a gun on Michonne and then the helicopter picking her up. That would have been a terrible blue balling of the century, okay? I'm glad they didn't do that. So let's kind of do a little bit of the rating game that we usually do. Writing, I'm going to give it an 8. Maybe an 8.25, maybe an 8.5. 8 to 8.5, somewhere in there. We'll see if it matters in the end. How it was shot, 8.5, 9. Editing, 9. Acting by Andrew Lincoln, 9.5. Acting by Denai, 8.5. Acting by Terry O'Quinn, 7.5. Acting by Thorne, 7. But overall, I'm not going to actually add it up and put it on the screen, but I think it still is averaging even higher than it was the last episode. Because I think it was still saying it was hovering around a B. I actually think the show went up a little bit. So good for this show. This show, it's building, and it feels like shit is happening. And if it's only one season, I'm totally fine with it, man. They are getting a lot of shit out of the way each episode. At least it feels. I'm getting enough dialogue from these characters, and there's enough going on to where I'm entertained. I feel tense. I'm waiting to see what happens next. I'm hungry for it. And if it ends quick, that's okay. Just end it well. Doesn't matter. The whole thing could have been 3 episodes, but you know what? If you wrap it up nicely, nobody will have a problem with it. Nobody will. I think this is my second favorite episode of the 3. It might be my favorite. It might be my favorite. Yeah. Fuck it. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is my favorite episode of the 3 that we've gotten so far. I think I enjoyed it that much. So, what did you think? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Was there something that I forgot to bring up? I'm sure there probably fucking was. But I like to do these off the top of my head, okay? That's what makes me different. All right? I just go from the dome. I go from memory. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What parts of it did you like? What parts of it did you hate? Am I right? Am I wrong? Tell me in the comments. Once again, thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Walking David podcast, reviewing episode 3 of The Ones Who Live. If you like this episode review, please drop a like, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. Thanks, you guys. too much for the man.
Too much for the man. He couldn't make it.
So he's leaving life behind, the one he used to know. He's leaving the CRM with his wife Michelle. He's leaving the CRM. Woo, 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 woo. And he's going back to find his kids and his wife. We already know that he found his wife, but we're not sure about the kids this time. He's leaving on that helicopter to Georgia. Living on a helicopter to Georgia. Woo woo!